inequality, hierarchy, and decision making, if we look back, seem to have become issues here. And here I want to address international relations. There is a Sri Lankan journalist called Samarajiva, who you need to look at. She says that whenever the Western media looks at success stories, they look to Germany and they look at New Zealand. Why have, particularly recently, I read an article about how the pandemic has been so, or at least countries that have Buddhism as a religion have been quite protected. We don't really know why. We will understand only many years later. So the success story of Dharavi never reached the kind of popularity that Bachchan's admission in hospital did, or the fact that he got infected. Recently on Twitter, there was an exchange about discussion about low-income countries by Imperial College of London, which didn't have a single person from a low-income country. As Carlo Kadov, the medical anthropologist, said, well, they are living by the title of being an imperial college after all. Internally, have we done the same thing? Usually we have looked down on people and called them gawar. Rural, tribal, remote locations have very few cases. And the rush for urban living is the cause of the outbreak as well as the spread. All this while we are looking down on these people as less fortunate. In fact, there has to be a shift in power and status on grounds of sustainability and strength. What have we learned? We've learned that the family is the most dependable caregiver for those in need of support and care. And for this, policy and planning and intervention must regard the family as the primary, not career, carer for those in need of care, whether it is the elderly or it is the young child. Policies are made for visible sections of society. There is a very hard, very sort of moving paper by Krishna Kumar in 2016 on the study of childhood, but also recently in newspaper articles, where he talks about planning, and he says that the kinds of plans that we have only look at a few people, and we need to address the larger members of our society. So the point is that things that work in other places don't work here. Look at the Dharavi solution. What did they do? What was the one thing they did right? They involved all local clinical experts. All the doctors who have been working there for decades were used. People who were poor, who didn't have places to stay indoors, were offered food and accommodation. They were moved out immediately. So the solutions that we can have for our own problems need to be our own. And in that, we need to be very wary of international NGOs, because their solutions are sometimes not made on the basis of local culture, but on the basis of global science. And I use that in quotes. By the way, there is sufficient evidence now to say that vertical age arrangements do much better than horizontal. Look at elderly care. If you look at peers, you will find that wherever the age has been mixed, there has been lower evidence of infection. Preparedness for crisis management must become a part of basic education. There's an excellent paper by Veena Das, which you should look at. The reference is attached. There will be a shift in personal dynamics, living alone or in a family or in solitude or in solidarity, and I will address this again towards the end. The shifts are needed in the way we understand poverty. Here I acknowledge the work of Bhrigupati Singh, where you should not see people in poverty as weak and vulnerable. That we have to redefine it because they're resilient and vital. We have to make sure that job security, agricultural policies, sales and transport policies need to be reviewed. We can no longer depend on international agencies, as I said. I come to the main point of my talk. So students' responsibilities are to be scientific, to always test what you hear, what you believe, always test what you believe with what you hear, keep an open and skeptical mind, avoid forwarding brief messages you get on social networking sites just because they look and sound true or as a joke. Spread verified messages. Be scientific in your conduct, in how you handle yourself in any situation, street or classroom. Don't discard the past. There are many wise lessons, but don't blindly accept it either. Don't blindly follow solutions because other advanced nations are doing it. They don't have all the answers. Make independent decisions. Faith and science I hope this is not a Freudian error, but it is faith and science are not always contradictory. You are blessed to have a faculty who cares about you, believe in them. You're luckier than many. Ethics and social justice believe in equality, not as sameness, but as the right to equal opportunity. We are not the same, but we all have the right to the same resources. Practice the principles of social justice and democracy. You are blessed to live in a country where our forefathers ensured our liberty, our sovereignty. Yes, there are local problems. But as we have discovered, even the most advanced countries that we thought had all the solutions to life have been brought to their knees. We read the Constitution to understand the principles on which our country became independent. Self-governance is sacred. Prejudice can be sinister and subtle, and it can destroy society. Be involved and alert in your lessons. You are in a privileged position. Question your teachers, ask them for readings, discussions, debates about ethics, morality, values, practices, but make up your own minds. Respect social institutions, home, family, university. If you have the good fortune of having these, you will have realized how precious they are. Generosity, care, and concern towards others in these hard times is essential. Finding a cause to which you can contribute your resources, attention. You're lucky to be in an institution, I say this for the third time, that is committed to ethics and science of the home as well as the community, where you're taught to live scientifically, whether it is with food, resources, clothes, relationships. Learn from and practice what you learn. Stay safe and well. 4 months of your life have been snatched away from under your feet. You need to take a pledge to fight back with vigor and with energy. Make a change, be the change, define your future, make it better, conserve, preserve, and prepare and produce. Follow principles of sustainability and respect local resources. Fear and anxiety need to be replaced with vitality and action. Here are some ideas from people who have been doing just that. I sent my presentation to a very dear student, Pooja Bhargav in Dubai, and very quickly she called me back to say that I must give some examples. During the partition, I don't know how many of you know this, but during the partition, university degrees were given, or acknowledgement was given to work that was done in refugee camps. Maybe we need to think of something like this. I want to bring up the case of Neha Singh, who has been very actively working towards providing essential commodities to women during lockdown. She started a campaign for the distribution of sanitary napkins. Returning to the joint family, 2 of my very dear friends and students, former, have left their urban residences to return to the joint family. It's not easy for a young scholar to go back into a joint family situation after having lived as a nuclear unit, but for the sake of the elderly and for the sake of their children who they say feel much safer being in a larger group, they have returned temporarily to their families. I see this as a very important contribution. You don't have to contribute large sums of money. You don't have to run out and offer your services to healthcare. You can do whatever little thing that you think you're able to do, given your resources and your energy. Encouraging children to express themselves creatively, storytelling, magic performances, art and craft. We have the example of Dimple Rangila, who's actually on your faculty, and another very dear former student, Vinny, who have taken this opportunity and or taken this crisis and turned it into an opportunity. And it is to them and to students, to efforts like that, I think I know only the surface of that wonderful iceberg. So I'm sure there are many, many more people doing a lot more work. I'm going to end with a quote from Dr. Anandalakshmi. And to give you an idea about how much power you have and draw inspiration from her words, I think my career chose me. Let me explain. In looking back at my life experiences, I feel it is not much that we plan in our lives, but things seem to happen to us. I use the term Swadharma, which can be defined as a combination of inborn talent, deep interest, and situation or circumstance, which combine to propel one in a certain direction. My Swadharma was to teach children and to speak on their behalf. It also involved my helping with the life chances of children from disadvantaged and poor families. These two strands have been intertwined in all the major paths I have walked over the years. But this was not for me. But this was not for me a pledge to be the only dutiful and earnest. Rather, I treated life as a joyous and culturally diverse adventure, filled with friends and family and good times. Whatever I have undertaken to do in my academic career and in other activities like traveling in India, taking photographs, or being a Rasika of classical music, I have done with zest. Thank you very much. I hand over the mic to Shraddha.
Thank you, Dr.